Are you going to the 2024 National Sports Collectors Convention? Well, if you are, this next set of videos from the Meelypod shop here in Gainesville, Florida is all for you. We're going to give kind of some tips and tricks, some intros, buying and selling point of views. Jameel Muhammad and Jeff Cardozo dive into the hobby, which is sports cards, trading cards, as well as all other collectibles, right now on the Meelypod Hobby Podcast, live from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Meelypod Hobby Podcast. It is episode 8 coming to you from the Meldon Law Studios. It is National Week, so actually filming this a couple of days early before Jameel Muhammad and me, Jeff Cardozo. He gets to go, I get to stay back home, but it is a big week, but we want to preview a lot of the stuff that's going to be going on up there because I know many of you that are watching this are going to be a part of that and make it really special. So Jameel, it's I know we've kind of led up to this for 3, 4, 5 weeks almost. You and the crew and some of the guests that we've had have spent hours upon hours pricing cards and trying to make sure everything's ready. And you know, it's finally go time, man.
It's like it comes up out of nowhere because you think like in the summer, May, you're like, oh, I got a few months left, and then all of a sudden it's middle of July. So we're ready. It's a lot. It's a lot, you know. And so for people traveling and as you get there, one thing I always try and tell people is like, you're not going to be able to do everything. You know, if you do, you're going to go crazy. So take your time, enjoy it. But also, if you are one of those people that you got to see all the booths, it's going to take you 2, maybe 3 days to see everything that's actually there. Whereas in like small shows, 100 table, 200 table, you can pretty much see that in half a day. This is a much different animal. So looking forward to it. We have a team of 10 we're taking up. We've made these videos, which we're going to show here in this podcast today, that just kind of talk about prepping and buying and selling. But I would encourage you, this is not necessarily just for the National. This is kind of for as you do go to shows. I think a lot of tips and tricks that I think you can pick up as well.
Well, and I always try to relate what number of podcasts we're doing to somebody that I kind of know and love. And you know, Greg Maddox will always be my favorite, so I'm waiting for number 31, which will, I guess, be early next year.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to that point. But 8, to me, is always Cal Ripken Jr., a guy that I admired growing up. My dad was a huge Oriole fan. They actually spring trained down in Miami, so you'd go to some of those spring training games back in the day. And then when I was a kid in high school, I got his autograph on that. Remember that Cal Ripken ball that they made with a special 8 on it? Yeah. So that's kind of one of my prized possessions. So I guess when I look at Cal, though, he was such an icon and the 21-31 and the big deal that, you know, Clinton's there in the booth broadcasting that as that's happening. But because he signed so much, does the value go down? Like, how does that work with a guy like Cal?
He's a great study because so many people that get his autograph were not in the resale market. I think like they genuinely wanted to keep it. Mm-hmm. And I meet so many people that, you know, as they passed on, I would say he's the number one autograph that I see that it gets passed down through collections that get resold to the shop. And I always see Cal Ripken Jr. baseballs. And it's because I think most people just kept his stuff and they wanted his stuff because of what he stood for. I think it's the golden age with him and Ozzie, the shortstops, the AL, the NL comparisons at that time. But for me, I have a Cal Ripken story of I was probably middle school-ish time when the Florida Marlins had their inaugural season. And I was first time ever going to get autographs. And I remember Chuck Carr specifically walking by me, and I mean, like this young guy, hey man, can I get your autograph? Looking at me and kind of like snickering and walking away. And I just remember being like, Chuck Carr. So then I didn't really care to get autographs after that. Yeah. And then fast forward a few years later, Space Coast Stadium in Vieira, Florida, which at that time, if you're in Vieira, Florida, it's way different now. It's so much built up. But it is, they had the Orioles playing, I forget who it was. It might have been the Nationals at the time, or maybe the Marlins that were there. And Cal was signing autographs. When I saw the line, and I thought, I have a baseball. Let me. All right, I actually had a card with me. I had a card. Let me see if I can do this. So I actually waited in line. And he signed for, I think it was like an hour and a half till everybody got it. He signed a card for me, and I shook his hand. And I just remember thinking, like, man, that's a stand-up player, you know, and you don't see a lot of that anymore. And I'm thankful for that memory. And so that's definitely my number 8 as well, I think.
Yeah, that's always remember. That's what he would do. He would sit there for hour and a half, 2 at most, and make sure he signed for everybody. So you always wanted to go to spring training when Cal was there. And I know a lot of people want to go to the National. So we've talked a lot about different things, and again, we'll show you those videos here throughout the podcast. But when we look at wax, is that a time too where, you know, each week we open up stuff that a new product comes out because it is the National and everybody wants to get their hands on it?
Yeah, so Topps Chrome will be a big deal at the National because it's just open. People will be grading stuff initially. You have UEFA Chrome coming out. Lamine Yamal has his big autograph in that set. There's not many releases during that time, but what they do a lot of is promo. And so promo packs, redemption packs. So like you could buy a box, bring it to them. Topps will slice the box so you can't resell it.
Okay.
And then so it's open now essentially. And then what they'll do is they'll give you a special silver pack at the National, which potentially could get like having an Ohtani autograph in it. Leaf does another pack giveaway. Panini is known for their silver and gold packs that get released at the event. Silvers are usually like the Thursday, Friday, and then the golds are usually on the Saturday, Sunday. And that's another big ordeal because this year we got Wembanyama in it. I have no idea if they're going to put all the new football guys in it. You never know what's the checklist either. So that's another exciting thing about the National is these kind of promo packs. Now, I will say this about promo cards. They are pack pulled, but because they're promo, they're not readily accessible to everybody. The value of them typically goes down. But initially, it skyrockets. Like the first sales of that stuff are like people are crazed about it. I remember seeing a buddy on Whatnot selling stuff for his shop, and they had the top silver packs. And I think they were valuing them at like $30-$40, and they were selling on Whatnot for $150.
Wow.
So there's a craze for that because it's something you can only get in Cleveland at that time. And so I'm excited to see that and to kind of see where the value of that wax goes.
And we're always excited about Wax, and WaxStat is the easiest way to get real-time price comps on wax boxes and sealed products. You do it right from your mobile phone or even your laptop, so save money and time. Get the best deal on wax by visiting waxstat.com. So a lot of cool wax there and a lot of cool videos. How long have you been doing this to I guess, inform people and let everybody know what it's the National is all about?
So I think it was 2016-ish time frame. I was an active member of the Blowout forums, and I haven't done as much on the forums lately, but Blowout forums was a place where you could not only go and post things, but you could also trade with people, sell things. It was an older way. If you really want to go back in time, Sports Card Forum was the big one in like 2010s. Blowout started to rise, Beckett forums, and it was just this world of like, I could trade with people on the internet just by posting things. And it was just this opened up a ton of things. Now we have Instagram and we have TikTok and you have videos and all that stuff. But then it was just text. And so it was cool. So one year after the National, they had a National thread. I actually wrote a very thoughtful, it took me about an hour to kind of put all my thoughts of the dealer perspective of the National. And I did it. And I didn't know anything about the word sticky at that time. But I guess forum posts can hit sticky level. Okay. And sticky level is where it has 10,000 or more views within 24 hours. And so it hit that level, and it was like the top of Blowout forums for like weeks. And I'm thinking like, what in the world? Like people really cared about what I had to say because I broke things down from numbers to the business side, economics, theft, blah, 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 blah. Went through it, and it became a thing I did almost every year. I stopped it a few years ago, but that transformed into people wanting to know more, and we started creating video series. So for the past probably 3-4 years, we've just put videos out on YouTube, and the 3 videos that we're going to show you now are prepping video, a buying, and a selling video. And the reason why they're all important is because so many people go to this show and then they don't really know, I won't call it etiquette, but it's more so just the mannerisms and how to go about negotiating, selling your cards, how to handle confrontation, how to handle bulk deals, how to handle grading on a mass scale, all these kinds of things. And so we have these videos for you. Hopefully they'll be helpful. I think you can take a little bit of that information and apply it to your daily shows that you go to as well in your local cities. But if you are going to the show, make sure you tune in on these.
Yeah, so I know many of you are part of our 39 different platforms on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and a whole bunch more. But now's your chance to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can check out Facebook, Twitter Live as well, because these videos are really, really good. I'm anxious to sit there and watch them and understand. So I guess even if you're not going to the National, but I know many people are, it's still probably good because, again, as you sit there and go into some of your local card shops, talk about the way negotiating is or trying to trade or do some different things. Understanding
margins. In our previous podcast, we talked to Ryan Bannister, and he mentioned the word margin a bunch. Like understanding those elements in business, right? Like why it might be harder to deal in a card shop with the overhead and the margin problem versus maybe at a trade day or something like that, where it's very much more equally balanced. There's lots of little intricacies that I think people forget, and sometimes people get offended by that, right? And we got to remember it's a business, but it's also a hobby, and so we're mixing the two of them. And I think there is a fine line to skirt on that. I've had my ups and I've had my downs when it comes to engaging with people sometimes, but for the most part, the hobby community is reasonable. And I think that's the word I always use is be reasonable at shows. Be reasonable on the selling side. Don't kill people on prices. Be very fair and be reasonable on the buying side. Don't try and offer 50% of a Ken Griffey Jr. autographed Topps Chrome card that came out last week.
Yeah.
That's a very sought after item, and so it just creates problems when you do that. You make
is it like hurtful to you guys, or are you just kind of used to it?
No, I think if you're in the card world, you better have thick skin.
Yeah.
You better you better be hardy. You got to have some hardiness to you in the card world. But for the most part, I think what happens is somebody may have success with that style with another dealer, or someone just trying to get rid of their stuff, and then they apply it to all that. So take a look at these videos. I'd love for you to give me your 10 cents on them. If you disagree with me, I'd love to hear what you have to say as well. And then also you can comment on any of our videos. Our July giveaway, this will be one of our last episodes for the July giveaway, is Grant Holloway autographed JSA spike cleats, and he's inscribed them. We hope that he's going to win the gold medal in a few weeks here. But all you got to do is just go into one of our videos from July and mark down in the comments section your favorite Gator Olympian. There's a lot of them. We got 44 of them in the Olympics.
Yeah, so. they keep going and going. That is, and you'll be going and going for an entire week up there. So Jameel, best of luck up there. I know it'll be a lot of fun. Just reconnecting with friends and people that we've had here on the podcast. It's always got to be really cool. It's like a fraternity without being in a frat, right? You get to see those guys again. So
follow our Instagram. I think that's probably our best platform. Instagram is Shop Meelypops. You can follow our stories and all the different things that are going on throughout the week, and you'll feel like you're there. I'll try my best to capture that.
All right, bring me back something cool.
I'll see what I can do for you.
All right, sounds great. All right, that is the great Jameel Muhammad. I am Jeff Cardozo. Again, check out these videos and a lot of tips and tricks and cool things happening. That was episode 8 of the Meelypod Hobby Podcast. Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Are you going to the 2024 National Sports Collectors Convention? Well, if you are, this next set of videos from the Meelypop shop here in Gainesville, Florida is all for you. We're going to give kind of some tips and tricks, some intros, some buying and selling point of views, and it's going to come from myself, a seasoned veteran of the National. I've been there 10 consecutive years. Throw in the COVID year, so it doesn't make it as consecutive. And I have 2 guys from the shop who have worked at the National with me multiple years, with multiple years of experience, and are awesome guys at the shop that want to also share with you. So this is going to be a really, really cool opportunity for you as someone who is looking to go to this National in Cleveland, Ohio at the IX Center. I can't wait for you to hopefully take home some of these nuggets. So tune in, make sure you get all these videos saved and you get them. The basic history of this show is that it is the greatest show on earth. It has been around since 1980. I believe the first show was in LA in a hotel airport with probably 50, 100 people. I have no idea how many was at the first show, so if you were there, let me know in the comments. But it is now tens and tens of thousands of people, if not 100,000 people at the last convention in Chicago last year in 2023. This is not the casual show at your local church fellowship hall or the gymnasium of the high school down the street. This is the mecca of all sports collectibles. And when I say sports, it's not just sports, it's entertainment, it's non-sports, it's TCG to the nth degree on TCG. You see everything from Pokemon, One Piece, Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dragon Ball Z, Lorcana. You see everything in that realm as well. You have memorabilia at this show. I have had the chance to see some of Babe Ruth and Jackie Robinson's jerseys and held a bat swung by Ty Cobb. I mean, there's so many incredible experiences from that side of the memorabilia. There's autograph signers, and there are people who are celebrities and athletes that are just walking the show that enjoy the show. It is our 10th consecutive show for the shop. We started in 2015, my wife and I did, with a little booth at the back. in Chicago with a little sign that had some information up and a little banner with Meelypops, to where we are today. We're taking a team of 10 people up this year. Come visit us. We will be partnered with Andy from Indy Card Exchange in the same section, same booth. So please come visit us. We'll have that graphic I can put up on screen for you so you can see how to come check us out in our booth numbers. I want to give you some thoughts on prepping for this amazing show. There are so many factors that go into what to take, how much to take, where do I stay, how do I get there, how long am I going to be there for, who am I going to go visit, who am I going to go sell to, who am I going to go trade to, who am I going to go buy from. There's so many elements to prepping. As you maybe have gone for your first time or gone for your 50th time, I'd like to kind of give you some thoughts and some ideas to think about as you are prepping for the National and the Cleveland IX Center this year in 2024. So the first thing is a financial thought process. So financially, how are you prepping? Are you bringing cash? If you're bringing cash, that's going to help you tremendously versus digital funds. The reason why? Because everybody accepts cash. There's nobody at this show you're going to go up to and say, do you want cash, or do you want Venmo, or do you want Zelle or Cash App? They're going to say, I want cash. So cash is by far the priority when it comes to buying and transacting with people. Why? It's easy, it's fast, it's simple. Everybody knows it. Everyone knows how it feels versus a crypto coin or a Venmo payment. So if you can bring that, I think that's going to help you a ton. Sometimes people don't like to travel with cash. You don't like to get on the planes. Trust me, I've heard stories with that. So why not get with your bank that's locally in the Cleveland area and then withdraw from there when you get there? I think that'll help out a ton. You can set those things up ahead of time. I do that all the time when I go to bigger shows. Second, don't deplete your savings account. Create a budget for yourself financially. Think about what you want to spend on this trip. Think about your overhead expenses. If you're going as a collector, then I think you don't need to worry so much about the overhead because that's part of it. If you're going as a flipper or a business person or a dealer, you definitely have to think about the overhead. I'm always thinking about that side. Where's our profit mark? How much profit can we make? How much sales can we make over overhead? You know, those net profits, all those things that we're always considering. So make sure you set your budget. Make sure you know what you want to spend on. And then also put a little bit extra to the side. And I always say that because there's always going to be something at the National that you're going to just love and sink your eyes and your heart and soul, and you're going to want to get that before you leave. So definitely have goals, all right? Have some goals. Know what you want to go find. Make that list. Make that the cards that you want to pick up for football season, for basketball season, for hockey, for baseball, for soccer, for TCG. Make that list of the things that you're looking for. And I would always tell you, don't compromise. So when you're walking the show on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday and you're not finding it, trust me, there's a lot there to find. Ask people too, if you're at a booth that has non-sports, for example, and you don't have that X-Men Hugh Jackman autograph, ask the guys there, ask people around who are looking, is there any other non-sports that you've seen? People will help you. We are a awesome hobby and awesome collector, just group of people that love all of this. So that will be, I think, an area in terms of creating goals and following those goals. I did mention cash earlier in the financial aspect. Digital payments, I would say as a dealer, what I noticed, the number one digital payment I think almost everybody will probably accept if they accept digital is PayPal. Secondarily, it's probably Zelle or Venmo. And then third is probably like a Cash App type thing. Do people accept crypto? Do people accept other types of payment? Yeah, I don't think you can write a check and get away with it at this show. But I think that if you have those digital payments, that will be my pecking order when it comes to that. So financially, hopefully I've given you a little bit to think about when you prep for this show. Practically, so how do you prep practically for the National? Number one, travel. How are you getting there? And then when you are there, how are you getting to and from there? As many of you know, the IX Center is a very different type of setup than the Rosemont Center last year in Chicago. It is not connected to anything. It is literally in the middle of this giant cement parking lot, and half of the building or a part of the building is owned by Amazon. So it is a huge, huge building. The card show is going to be taking place in that building, but you will not be able to just go and run up and take a shower, 5-10 minutes, walk back to your hotel. So as I say that, think about how you're going to get there. Think about the lines that you might have to be in if you have to wait in any lines, specifically to buy admission tickets or anything like that. Buying anything online, obviously QR codes or getting things done ahead of time is going to help you, but make sure you have got that figured out, because you don't want to lose time making this huge travel to Cleveland and then you're stuck because you can't get an Uber and you didn't realize that the Uber wait is 45 minutes, you know? Those kinds of things, I think, just think through. Second, how are you carrying your stuff around? I've seen this so many times, people lugging boxes. I've seen people with pull carts, luggage cases. Those are all great ideas, but make sure you have a way to move your collectibles, especially if you're trying to sell stuff on the move, trying to trade with people. You got to have something. Now, everyone's like, oh, that's right, you just get a Zion case or get a Pelican case. Yeah, you can do that, and I think those are also very, very helpful. But if you're going to be someone who's got a ton of weight on a backpack, or you're carrying briefcases or things like that, that can be very arduous, especially when there's hundreds of thousands of people around. So make sure you have something. Shout out to Zion cases. You can use our code Meelypops. I think they give you 10 or 15% off. If you want to get one of those, I was looking on his website just recently, and he has a lot of stuff still in stock. I say he, it's Clint. Shout out to Clint who owns it. No shout out to that. He's a Cubs fan, though, and I got the Cardinals fan hat on today. But Clint is a good guy. He owns Zion, and he has a little code that can hook you up. Just put in Meelypops, and you can put that in on the checkout page. Badges. Badges have changed this year. They are not as easy as it was before. I know I've talked in previous videos where people can pick up dealer badges from folks. People can pick up badges. They can get one ahead of the time. That's not happening this year. I just got off the phone earlier and having to try and get badges for my team, just enough badges for the people who are working in the team to even be there. It's a very tricky situation this year. So make sure you've got that figured out. It's not as easy as it once was. And for those of you who don't set up and try and get a dealer badge, you're putting names on those badges too. So I'm not sure if they're going to be checking that, but be mindful for that. So we did some financial prep. We did some practical prep. How about some physical prep? Start rockying. Start going out there and running a mile. Start going out there and lifting weights. I think walking is going to be very key. So if you want to get around to see everything, you're going to walk a lot. Your feet are going to hurt. Wear comfortable shoes. Bring a change of clothes. For you guys, bring a change of underwear and some deodorant. Trust me, I mean, you're going to be sweating, and it's going to be a lot you're going to be excited about. So bring that stuff out. Make sure you think about snacks. You know, do you want to bring in some granola bars? Do you want to stop for food and get in line for 45 minutes, an hour and a half? There's crazy lines at these events. So do you want to do that at the event where you're waiting? I think that's a lost opportunity for a lot of people. So consider that with food. Also, how are you sleeping? If you go to the National and you stay up all night, those first couple nights, you will pay for it. So make sure you get enough rest. I think a lot of people don't realize that. I lose my voice every year at the National. I usually get sick near the end of the National because I have no voice. It's one of these things that it really does drain you. You are going to be used quite a lot in your voice and your physical capacities. So walking a lot. Make sure you understand how to get some snacks and food, maybe not having to wait, and also get you sleep, get you Z's. Fourth thing, safety. Safety. Number one, obviously you want to be safe in general. Last year in Rosemont, it was a little crazy. Bathrooms were overflowing. There's no AC. People were passing out. Some guy had a heart attack. These are things that I heard at the event. This year, hopefully, the IX Center, they have that under better control. Make sure you know where your stuff is. When you're walking around with backpacks and extreme valuables, make sure you know where your stuff is. Trust me, you can get stuff stolen. There's a funny story. I was at a trade night, I remember, probably like 4 years ago, and this kid was sitting at a table with about $5,000 worth of cards on the table, and he won a prize, and he didn't have any friends, by the way. He was just sitting by himself at this table with the rest of the collectors around him. He won a prize in a raffle and walked and left all his stuff. He actually left $50 cash on the table and went up to get his blaster box, and then came back probably 4 or 5 minutes later. Now, granted, there were a lot of people there who were watching out for him and told him, but be very mindful. Don't do those things. You know, you can get caught up into, especially young folks at trade nights. There's a lot of people that are savvy that are looking to steal, and I don't want you to come home and lose some cards. You know what I mean? Those are some things I would think as you prep, as you think about the National, as you kind of are milling in your mind what's going to happen. The last thing I would like to talk about is just kind of the potential opportunity that is this event. It is a Tuesday early dealer setup day, Wednesday normal dealer setup day, VIP Wednesday, I think it's at 3 o'clock till 8 or 9 or 10 that night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all day. It is an opportunity where there is going to be billions, not millions, but billions of dollars in collectibles at this place, billions being probably spent as well at this venue. It is the greatest show on earth for that reason. There is so much action. It truly is the New York Stock Exchange of Cards floor, you know, from back in those old movies in the 80s and 90s, straight out like a Wolf of Wall Street kind of, you know, understanding, thinking about how much stuff is going on. That is what the National is. It's very fast-paced. PSA, Beckett, CGC, SGC, everybody else in between, all the graders are going to be there. How much opportunity you have to submit something, to grade something, to then take the potential to take that card now that's a PSA 10 and sell it on the floor. There are plenty of cards that there's a difference between a 9 and a 10. It might be $5, $10, $15, $100,000, $1 million if you get into the super high end. And so the grading potential is there. Make sure you know what that's figured out. How have you got your forms done beforehand? What are the lines going to look like for that? PSA will be busy. So think about all of that. And then, of course, the trading opportunities at trade nights and meeting people on the show floor. There is so much you can do from that trading world. Lastly, I'll close with this as we finish this kind of first prepping for the national episode. Have fun. Enjoy it. Enjoy people around you. And remember, this is a hobby. So many young kids, if you can make a kid's day at the national, it will go a long way. It'll make you feel a lot better. If you can help someone with, $5, $10, $50, whatever you might be blessed with to help them get that card that you hear in a negotiation, do those things. I mean, the hobby is a family. It really is an awesome group of people, and I think you'll enjoy this show. But that'll be it for me. Meelypod is our new YouTube channel. We have a podcast. Please check us out. We're on YouTube and Facebook for the video. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and like 37 others when it comes to the audio only. Check it out. We got some cool episodes, and we'll be adding more of these national videos. We'll have a second and a third as well. So make sure you hit subscribe, like this video, and then get your notifications set so you can catch the new ones when they come out. See ya!
Albert, Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
2024 National in Cleveland, Ohio. Are you guys going? Well, I'm going. And I know that you're going to be selling something. So I can't wait to see what you'll be selling at the show, what we might be buying from you. But would you like some tips, some tricks? Hear our point of view from the dealer side. Can't wait to share with you all the questions that we got. Myself, Joe, and Tim, who work in the shop, are going to be giving you their perspective, as well as guys that just help in the store and have done the national many times. So I can't wait to show you all these tips, all these tricks, and we'll have a good time talking through the fun part of making some bang, making some cheddar, making some scratch at the national.
My name is Joe. I've worked at the shop for almost 2 years now, going on 2 years. Last national was my first one. I had a super fun time. It was super busy. I was mostly buying for the shop at the national. So I got to walk around a little bit, but it was super busy. I've collected cards pretty much my whole life. So seeing a ton of cards is nothing new, but it's always cool to see like how many cards are really at the national. You don't expect it if you've never been there, and I had no idea. I would say my favorite memory of the national was going to all the different trade nights and really seeing, like, it's one thing when you're at the show and seeing how many people are there, but to see how many people really love like a certain type of card, like F1. We went to the F1 trade night and I know nothing about F1, but it was cool to see all the different types of cards and high-end cards that are there. I had a good time just even after the show, just hanging out in the hotel room, buying cards from people and selling them in my case that I got.
My name is Tim, and I have worked at the shop for nearly 3 years now. This will be my fifth national. My first one was when I was a little kid, in the one in Atlanta, actually. We actually drove to it. Collected cards pretty much all of my childhood. Me and my father collected from, I would say, 1986 through 1992-ish, somewhere in there. And then I picked back up collecting end of 2016, I guess it was, until now. Some of the advice to somebody who's trying to sell their cards at the national, the most important one is just have your cards priced. There's an old joke that the dealer's job isn't to buy and sell your own cards. So, have an idea what you want, have a price. If it's something that's tough to comp, obviously there's things that are that tough. But for the most part, at least have a pretty good idea.
Another piece of advice, if you're going to sell some cards or if you're waiting in line for something, if I'm waiting in line for, say, a certain buyer, and I see 2-3 people walk away not looking super happy and they didn't walk away with a deal, I'm thinking to myself, all right, how long am I going to be waiting in this line? Am I going to get a deal done? A lot of times, there's a huge chance that people paying strong, everybody's just selling to them because people know. And for me, as a seller, when I'm walking my cards around at shows, I'm going to say, all right, I want to go to the people that are paying the strongest and are really fast to deal with so then I can move on to the next thing. If you waste 3 hours of your time in one deal, That's a lot of time to waste at the National, and it's expensive too. Tickets are expensive and you want to make the most of your visit. Another piece of advice that I have for selling your cards is where you're getting your comps from. So I can find sales on some of my cards that are crazy expensive and crazy cheap, but I think that most dealers are typically sticking to eBay, Card Ladder, and 130 Point. Those are always pretty solid at just getting data. Stuff like collector, price charting, sometimes even alt, they don't aggregate the data correctly, and for niche cards, sometimes the values that they spit out just aren't as accurate. So I'd say when you're comping your cards, when you're trying to sell your cards, go off stuff that has real comps and that has real values that a dealer can see and say, all right, well, I can pay this based off that. I think that's the easiest way to sell cards. A lot of big buyers like repackers are typically just going off the last few sales on eBay and then making their offer on that. So if you think that your card is worth, say, $100 because you scanned it and that's what some app says, it's not always the case, and that's not what people are gonna pay. Repackers pay really strong, but they're really firm with their prices. And if you're looking to sell to people that pay the highest, I would recommend just getting a solid comp that you're comfortable with and going with that.
So there's a lot of advice that I would give to people when it comes to buying and selling. One thing from the selling side, and you are walking up to a booth to sell your prized possessions and your stuff that you bought and you want to flip and all that, is remember a couple things. One, just be confident in it. I think one thing for me as a dealer, I hate seeing people who are unsure of if they want to sell an item, if they want to let go of something. I know we can always talk about pricing. I'm sure the guys and us are going to always harp back to know your comps and these kinds of things, but just be confident in that. And then also, don't sell something that you would regret. I think that you're at the National, so you could probably find anything in the, under the sun, right? This is the biggest show on earth, but don't sell something you'd regret. I think that's gonna really go back to bite you, and I know it could bother you later on the show, and you don't want that. So bring the things that you want to sell, keep the things that you don't want to sell.
Some advice that I would give for people trying to sell their cards at the National, first of all, I would say know your comps. I would roughly know what cards are worth. It makes it so much faster for dealers that are trying to purchase cards, or your buddy that wants to buy something off you, a guy that you just met. If you know roughly what stuff is worth, it makes it so much easier to sell stuff from your end and theirs. So that way you know, am I getting a good deal, or is somebody trying to kill me on pricing?
The most important tip for making it enjoyable is wear comfortable shoes. But then for making it enjoyable for everyone else, I always tell people that in their backpack, so they carry their cards, carry some deodorant, carry some gum, spare t-shirt if you need it. I know I missed last year, and from what I understand, it was a sauna in Chicago, so a spare t-shirt also isn't a bad idea. But just comfortable shoes is the most important. You're going to be walking a ton. You think you're going to walk a lot, but you walk even more.
I would say don't stress about it. Don't worry, oh, did I sell that too low, or did I buy this card way too high? I would say as long as you don't feel stressed, it's probably fine. In the end, I've sold cards too cheap before, and I've bought cards way too expensive before. It's all a learning thing. I would say at the end of the day, if you're happy and you had a good time, that's all that matters. I wouldn't worry too much about little deals. I would just get a deal done fast and then move on to the next thing, because you're really missing out. You only have a limited time window. You want to make the most of it. And I would say that's the best way to do it, is just don't stress. Go through it, work fast. Obviously don't sell $1,000 cards for $100, but it'll all work out in the end.
You're at the National, so you want it to be enjoyable. You don't want this experience to be something you regret or something that you don't want to think about. One element that I know that I watch, and I have been a victim of it as well, is theft. When you go to trade nights, for example, even taking your cards and showing to 4 different people at once. If you're laying them out on tables at trade nights, be very mindful of your cards. I guarantee you at the National, there are tons of people who are looking to steal your stuff. When it comes to your cases and how you have how you take your cards place to place, if they're in a backpack without a lock and it's easy for someone to unzip them in line at PSA and just grab your stuff, that can happen. Making the trip enjoyable is also setting up some fences, some protection, some walls, so you don't have to deal with something like theft.
Pet peeves of the National, gosh, I don't really, other than someone not constantly just saying, I don't know what I want for the card or how much it's worth kind of thing. Nobody has an issue with, you coming up to a table and saying, how much do you think this card's worth? And we'll definitely tell you. There's no problem in that. But if you are trying to sell your cards, definitely have an idea of what you're looking for them. That's one of the things, the most important thing I would say.
My biggest pet peeve at the National is probably what's the best you can do? I think that it's tough because especially me working for a store, I don't necessarily know what we bought stuff for, so I'm not gonna just openly go and say, oh, we can do blank, because I have no idea. If I hear an offer and I think it's fair, I just accept it. That's how I work. So I would say just go out and make an offer that you think is fair.
I have so many pet peeves about the National, and it's simply because I think people don't think about others. One big thing that I would encourage everybody to do, it is very expensive to set up at the National. I'm not going to go into the overhead. It's well over five figures. But when you are somebody who is cross-dealing, for example, like let's say someone's in line to sell to somebody and you try to start buying from that person, well, that dealer is going to get really upset because they know what you're doing. You're sharking all their area and the space that they've and the time that they've taken to create that buying section. Don't do that. Wait till maybe that dealer or whoever has taken a chance to look through that person's stuff. Another pet peeve of mine is when people are looking to lock in the dealer and catch the dealer, like trying to win over the dealer. This happens more than I like to admit it. I see it all the time, people bringing up raw cards that are damaged that sell, and so maybe there's this $500 raw card and it's got a dinged corner or scratched or a manufacturer defect they don't tell you about. Maybe in a trade, someone is negotiating down something and saying, hey, here's a $5,000 card. I'll give you $3,500 for it. No, I don't want $3,500. I'll do $4,200. All right, so we come to $4,000 as our agreement price, and then all of a sudden, well, I have some stuff to trade now. Well, I don't want to see that stuff that you have to trade. The card's it's $4,000 cash or $4,000, Venmo or whatever. It's not $2,000 and some other cards that I don't necessarily want. I always allude that to when you were a little kid and you watched your siblings who may be younger than you eat baby food that your mom was force feeding them, right? That squash or that gross carrots or whatever in mush form. Like that's how I feel, like you're force feeding me something that I don't want, and I already gave you and I was fair with you on a negotiation. That sets me off a lot of the time. So don't do that. I think you'll see that a lot with dealers. They'll shut down if you do that because it's playing this game where it's not really, I think, fair and reasonable. Another thing is don't cross deal. Don't put your stuff on top of display cases or people's place of business and then do dealers. I've seen that happen so much, and it's so frustrating because it really does irk, I believe, the people on the other side of that. And the encounters that I've had to have with people, some of them have been very easy. And so if someone does say to you, hey man, would you mind moving your stuff? Hey, if someone's a little bit more direct and say, hey, get your stuff out of here, just smile and say, oh, sorry. Like that's a simple thing to do. I've had a lot of other guys with different retaliation, I'll say that, when I've asked them to move. But those are a couple of my pet peeves. Hopefully that was helpful to you. Picked up some tips and tricks on selling this year at the National in 2024, Cleveland, Ohio, IX Center. Make sure you guys give us a follow, subscribe to this channel. Meelypod is our new podcast as well, so we'd love for you to interact with all the awesome guests that we've had. A lot of cool nuggets dropped from our guests, and as Jeff and I get a chance to enjoy that podcast world. We will see you at the show. Come visit us. Our booth number is right here, and we can't wait to see you with your smiling faces, give you a hug, take a picture, and maybe do some deals. Andy from Indie Card Exchange is set up right next to us with his team. It's going to be an awesome, awesome event. We'll see you guys shortly. This is Jameel, owner of the Meelypod shop, Gainesville's home for collectibles of all sorts, including every single type of sports cards, whether it be Panini, Topps, Leaf, Upper Deck. We have it. Come on in, get yourself a box, a pack, get yourself some supplies, get into our breaks, get your Pokemon, get your Yu-Gi-Oh! All the other different kinds of TCG products that we carry and shop are always fully in stock. You can find our stuff on our website as well, meelypops.com. That's another way you can interact with the store, or you can just come into the shop. We're located off 39th Avenue by I-75 behind Walgreens and Sonny's. Stop on by. We're open every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And you can check us out on our social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, whatnot, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We'd love to see you. Come on out to the shop, have some fun, be a part of the card community here in Gainesville, and always go Gators. The National is right around the corner. Cleveland, Ohio, 2024, IX Center. Meelypops will be there. We're going to have so much fun. But I'm sure you want some tips and tricks, and you also probably want to know a little bit about buying, how to approach dealers, how to buy at the National, how to pay, how to interact. So we're going to go over all of that with myself, who's been a little bit of a veteran. I'm 10 years now into the National. Tim and Joe as well from the shop are going to be giving you their shared perspectives, and we can't wait to give you some advice so that you can be successful and have a lot of fun at this huge event.
When you're trying to buy from a dealer, have an idea of what you want to spend. Don't just in the heat of the moment spend too much. And also, there's so many dealers there. You know, if someone gives you a bad vibe, or if someone's, you know, not courteous to you, just move on to the next table. There's plenty of spots there to buy or spend your money. When you're walking around the show, also, you're gonna see, like when I'm walking around to buy, for instance, my personal experience, there's going to be just display cases and display cases of Downtowns, Kabooms, Luca Silvers, CJ Stroud hollows. I just actually skip all that unless it's stuff I'm buying to resell for myself. That stuff, anything you can find at like a 40 table show in your hometown. I don't go to the National to find it. I mean, you're flying across the country, you're driving a long way, you have hotels, you have food. Try and find the stuff that you're looking for that's really important to your PC. You know, an obscure card or vintage in a higher grade that you can trade the one you have into a higher grade. That also brings me to another point. Be very weary of buying raw vintage at the National. It's one thing if you go to a setup like Louisville Sports Cards that has a ton of good raw vintage and they stand behind their product, whereas you go to somebody that has one table and all their vintage looks really, really good, but none of it's graded. I'm not saying that it's trimmed for sure, but just be weary of buying raw vintage at the National.
Comp the card before you talk to them. Don't just ask somebody what's the best you can do. That's probably the worst question to ask because people hate that. Just shoot an offer that you're comfortable with and then go from there with the dealer. People don't want to be asked like, oh, is that the best you could do? What's your lowest right off the bat? Just shoot them an offer that you're comfortable with and that you think is fair to them too. If somebody's sticker is double what you're going to offer, maybe don't offer it and just move on and maybe come back and ask somebody if they have some room on something prepared with an offer.
Some advice when you're buying from dealers is to simply be kind. I think there are a lot of people that I've noticed in this world that have become, you know, look at me, look at how much I know, you know, I'm the King Kong of comps. I am the know-it-all. And that goes nowhere with a dealer, trust me. I think just having an honest conversation, and don't get me wrong, there's other people on the side of the table, dealers, who are going to be like that as well. I get it. But for the most part, most people at the National are willing to work with you, are willing to be reasonable. And I think that's the key, is being reasonable in this whole crazy world of comps and manipulation and all these different data points that we see. So when you are buying from somebody, be kind. Don't show this in their face, right? Hey, check out this comp. You know, by the way, sometimes I've done that when people have showed me a comp. I've taken their phone, and about 3 out of 4 times, I would say, doing that, they've manipulated the comps. They've put lowest sold. They've got data from something that's wrong. They've omitted the highest sale. So we know that, right? We know that. Be kind, be courteous, work with people. And I think that'll go a long way when you're buying from somebody. Also, when you are buying, cash is always king. So remember that when you're buying from people. If you're trying to send lots of digital payments, a lot of these dealers who may be a little bit more old school, they ain't taking Cash App. They ain't taking Zelle. They might take PayPal, and they want friends and family. So if you can send friends and family, maybe that's good. But if you can't, you're up creek. Or on top of that, maybe Venmo, right? That's another element where some people have and they don't have. So credit cards are always very tricky because of how much service fee they're taking. So if you can pay in cash, that will help a lot on the buying side.
Another important tip is if you're trying to trade into a card you want, number one, don't be offended if you bring up a card to us and it's maybe something we don't need or we can't sell or something. Don't just shut down and be offended because somebody doesn't want to buy your card or trade for your card. Let's suppose you have a $10 card and you want to trade for another $10 card that we have. You're not going to get equal money for the most part. I'm sure there might be some cards that people think are more liquid and you might be able to get higher percentages, but you realize that you're just not going to trade your problem for someone else's problem. So you're going to have to, normal percentages apply. Just trade as cash still has the same kind of percentages when it comes to trading into something. The other thing I would say, it's another tip I just thought of, is when you're walking around, obviously note where you are if you find a card you want, because it's tough to find it again. Everyone will tell you that. But number 2 is if you find the card you came specifically to the show to buy, and you find it for the price that you're comfortable with, buy it. Because you don't know if it'll be there when you come back in an hour. And even if you do find it cheaper, you should be happy that you found the card you wanted at that price.
My personal advice on attending the National, I would say it's a thing to have fun. You don't need to win every deal. I try and just be fair with people that I deal with. I would say Like, my best advice is just to be fair. I think that people appreciate honesty. Everybody knows that everybody's trying to make some money here and there on certain cards, and I think that honesty goes a long way. I would never try and I think it's worth blank and it's really worth blank. I just say be honest and everything else will get figured out in the end. I've bought and resold cards for a long time. I've gone to a lot of local shows. I've been to a lot of good shows and a lot of bad shows. When I start piecing out my budget and what I'm going to bring, I think to myself, all right, how much inventory am I bringing first? Because for me, inventory is a huge factor. If I have a lot in inventory, I'm not going to bring a ton of cash. If I'm there to sell, I'm there to sell. I'm not going to be buying huge deals and then, oh my gosh, I have so much to sell. For me, right now I'm carrying pretty big inventory, so I'm going to go to the National pretty light in cash, probably like mid 4 figures. I'm not really worried about bringing a lot in cash because I don't really care to do a ton of big deals right at the start of the National. I think that a lot of people are going to be at the National ready to buy right away. So for me, I'm going to sell my stuff first, and then I'm going to buy the better deals. I'm not going to force stuff. And I think that's important when you're considering, like, what are your goals for the National? It's easy to get caught up in, like, oh, everybody's buying, I got to buy right now. It's a really strong buying market. So now if you have some good stuff that you're into pretty cheap, just sell it. I would say sell it and then take the money and then reinvest into better deals that you find at the end of the show maybe. A lot of stuff that's super liquid, like downtowns, kabooms, I think I would just sell it. Like me personally, I'm not going to be buying that stuff at 95% trying to make a little bit of money. I think that it's easy to get caught up in the hype, but when you really break it down and look on paper, how much profit are you making? Especially at a show like the National, I would recommend just go with a plan and try and stick to that and try not to get caught up in the wave of like, oh my gosh, I got to keep up, I got to have the best cards, because it's not always about that. You can also just go and have fun and then make a little bit and get some cool PC cards that you've been looking for. I think that budget is important. I think that it's important to not get caught up in the hustle and bustle, and I think that I would recommend go with a plan. If you're there to sell, just sell, and if you're there to buy some cool PC cards, go and do that. I think that it's going to be pretty tough to buy right away at the National. That's just my opinion. I may be wrong. I'm happy to be wrong, but that's what I think.
Embrace the moment. You only get this once a year, and sometimes people get ill. Sometimes people have weddings to go to, and you don't always see everybody at the National. So embrace the moment. There are going to be some crazy breaks, some crazy grade reveals. There's going to be some crazy content being made. All of that stuff, embrace it, and just remember, like, this is the 1 week of the year that the giant hobby family gets together. So take some time, smile, enjoy people's company. Last year was hell. It was tough. You had no AC. You had toilets overflowing in Chicago at the Rosemont Center. You had people very angry at that show. Yet I was working with our team and the people and everyone still had a smile. It was awesome. We were right next to our buddies' Indie Card Exchange. We were in this really bad area where they put up carpets and blocked us off, and everything could have gone that way, but instead of going down the tubes, it went the right way. And I think that's what I look back and think about. That was our most successful National ever, yet we were in a horrible location and we weren't told some things. We took lemons and made lemonade, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So always embrace the moment, embrace what's around you, even if it's not the best, or you're having to wait in line for a long time. Think about that end result.
Personal advice on attending the National is if you're not staying within 2 minutes of the facility, you might as well stay 25 to 30 minutes. The Uber ride's not going to be that much more expensive, or probably 20, 25 minutes. The Uber ride's not going to be that much more expensive, and the hotels will be astronomically cheaper. Cleveland's a little different because of the hotel situation, but mainly thinking along the lines of Chicago. Now that I've gone to, I guess, 4 Nationals, definitely the best part is meeting people. I interact with lots of people on Twitter, and it's great to meet them in person. Good friends of the shop here, Ivan and Kiki from Germany, came over and actually missed last year when they had some really amazing artwork. Luckily, Jameel was able to snag some for me. But meeting the people that you interact with on a daily basis through Twitter or Instagram, or even some of the old heads out there that still use Blowout Forum to meet up with people. Meeting those people in person, going to the hotel bar, having a beer, and then talking about what you saw, that is definitely the best part of the National. Kind of the recap of your day when you're hanging out with your friends at the end of the evening. Definitely the best thing. That would be the best part of your National by far, is the people there.
Well, that's a wrap. That's the end of our last video for the National. Today we talked about buying. We talked about some tips and tricks to hopefully help you as you navigate this amazing show. Make sure you follow us on Meelypod, our channel here, which is our new podcast. And make sure to follow us on all of our socials. We'd love to catch up with you. If you're going to the National, come stop by our booth. We're booth numbers right here, and we can't wait to see you. Me, Indie Card Exchange, all the card shops in that area, RBI Crew, Sports Card Junction. A lot of awesome people will be over there. Can't wait to see you. Can't wait to give you a hug. Can't wait to take a picture and have fun at this year's National Sports Card Convention. We'll see you there. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next Thursday at noon.